not. Hello. When something doesn't work, technically, I've learnt that you just simply unplug it and then it works again. Simply unplug it and then plug it back in and it works. It's always the advice technical people give you. Come over more this way. There we go. You just make sure it's working on YouTube. Yes. Nice to see you, nice. Welcome to live stream. If this is the first time you've ever been on live stream, welcome. What do I have to tell you? I always like to sit in silence first. It's not important to me, but it's just something that I like to do before I talk. So it's nice if you join me. I do these talks every Sunday and Wednesday at 6 p.m. French time, and you're very welcome to join. It's live on YouTube, so you just go to my YouTube channel, and if you press subscribe and click that bell next to it, then you'll get notifications into your email box telling you about when I've gone live. You have to have your settings switched on so that you get email notifications from YouTube. You can also subscribe to my website and you'll get notifications about different events that I'm doing. If you want to come to an event, I've got 2 events coming up, one in London on the 20th of June in Notting Hill, and that's a day event in London, and one in northern Germany. Where is it? Parin, northern Germany on the Baltic Sea. Parin, I think it's called. And that's the 9th to the 16th of August. So you can come to that as well. The booking for the hotel and the talks are different. So you can come to the talks, but you can stay at home, or you can camp, or you can do whatever you want. You can find accommodation that suits your needs. But it's done at a very beautiful hotel. You can walk to the Baltic Sea from. I think maybe it's drive actually. It's 10 minutes from the Baltic Sea, but I'm not sure if that's walking or driving. I should find out. Is there anything else that I should be talking about? I haven't shared this on Facebook yet. I'll just share it. Oh, forget it. Can't be bothered to open all the different windows to share it. Too late. I've lost the time. We'll just start in silence. So, okay, well, I've forgotten what the name of the talk is, so I'm just going to look up. I always forget what the name of the talk is. Are you perfect? Are you perfect just the way you are? Oh. Oh. Where to put the phone? I would say yes. That's what I would say, is you are perfect just the way you are. The mind is always looking for ways in which there's something wrong with you, in which there's a problem in this life. There is no problem in this life. hard to think of something to say today. But let's get started, okay? So my answer to are you perfect? Yes, of course you are. In every way. Okay, that's leading me to doership. Good. Something to talk about. So what happens is that when we begin to believe that we're the thinker, that we're this person inside the head that commentates on everything, like, I'm walking down the street, I'm buying myself a croissant, I'm drinking my drink out of my pink cup. We begin to assume that that is us. That is who we are. That voice is us. And energetically, it begins to feel then that who is looking at this life is a separate entity that's condensed inside of this body and is looking out. Well, that's not who you are. Who you are isn't something moving in time. Who you are isn't a thought, an idea, a thing, a body, a sensation, a smell, a sight. Who you are is what's always been there prior to identifying with that. What's here right now. That which is, that knows what's happening. That's conscious of what's happening, but also isn't separate from what's happening. It's not conscious of what's happening, it is what's happening. That consciousness is the appearances. And this is who you are. And this is deep rest. It's the end of seeking. But well, there's this belief that you are somebody. When that happens, then there's this contraction inside the body. And as soon as there's this energetic contraction, so as soon as you feel limited, it's like walking around with a stone in your shoe that feels like there's something wrong. Not because there is actually ultimately something wrong, but because you're living a lie. You're pretending to be something that you're not. It's like You're infinite, your nature is undefined. And then you're defining yourself as a body, as a name, as an idea. So most people that are sitting listening to this talk think that they are somebody that walked into this room, sat down on the chair and is listening to somebody called Lisa speak, and that she is speaking through her own free will, whereas actually speaking is a happening. And sitting here is a happening. And sitting here isn't a result of walking into this room, turning on the computer and watching Lisa or watching YouTube. Sitting here is simply sitting here without any explanation. It's free. It doesn't have a backside and a front side where you've come from. It's free. The imagination can imagine and put together a story, but that story isn't a fixed thing and it's always changing. And if you look back at your story of how you arrived here, you'll notice that there's lots of holes. You're like, oh, I can't remember walking down the corridor or parking the car. Did I put the handbrake on? Can't remember any of that. It's all blank, like a dream at night. There's bits missing, but yet you're still convinced that this moment is a result of the past. It appears that this moment is the result of the past, so in our apparent timeline, but actually our experience is this moment is a result of this moment. And that's the difference between a dualistic mind and a non-dualistic mind, knowing that. And it's not just knowing it, it's that this energetic seeing of it, that you aren't limited inside here or here. Well, today, not much speaking is coming out. Not that that's a problem for me, but tends to be that you come to listen to me talk. Give a talk about non-duality. So let's see if there's any questions. There's no questions. There is a question. Hi, dear Lisa. Hi, Anna. I was wondering if you could help me with discern which chakra to work on via Skype. For the past 2.5 years, I followed Muji intensely and it helped me grow a lot. But somehow, during this time, the personality picked up and entertained some pretty self-defeating habits such as smoking, a complete dropping out of career path, and an incredibly toxic relationship with someone diagnosed with schizophrenia. Now I've quit smoking, cut off the relationship, and am no longer religiously following Muji. Life is more stable, but there seems to be a lot of leftover pain and hurt. The worst is the regret with the relationship. It's hard to wrap my head around how that endured for so long. It was so extremely unjust, unfair of a relationship. I wish God could explain why he allowed it to go on so long. Sometimes it seems like it was just because of weakness and insecurity and not for some greater divine reason. I'm actually quite content and happy. It's just hard to not feel immense regret, like I wasted 2 years on such a selfish individual. Yeah. So, like in your system, it feels like you wasted 2 years on somebody, and that's who you are, and that you chose to waste your life on them through insecurity and weakness. Whereas actually, in reality, that's not true. Who you are is what's here right now, what's happening. Who you are is this. There isn't somebody that's wasted their life or wasted their time. There's only what's happening. And that's free and spacious and immense. Without regret. And that's who you really are. But in the body, there can be leftover traumas which keep repeating that story. So in your body now, regret normally comes from the heart or in the throat or in the solar plexus. It can be all over the body, but those are the main areas of where regret normally lies. So in there is a pain in one of those 3 areas. And then your mind tries to seek to avoid that pain, even in its negativity. So say if you have pain in your heart about the regret, your mind keeps saying, you're bad, you did something wrong, it's because of weakness, why did life do this to you? How could he be so unfair and unjust on you? Why was it so cruel? And it looks for reasons and remembers things, and it kind of is self-perpetuating the pain. But the mind has some sort of belief, even though, or it's a habit, that by keep repeating the story, it will eventually get somewhere or sort something out. So often when people have these regrets, they want to tell everyone about the regrets, or they want other people to validate it, or they want to talk about it all the time, or they want to convince everyone what an asshole the other person was. So just notice that. And just give your attention to where it hurts, wherever it be. Just allow it to be there. Whatever story it wants to say, and just be really honest with yourself. Like sit by yourself in a room and be really honest, like of how angry you are with that individual, how angry you are with God about it. If anger arises, it won't be there all the time, but if it's there, and just speak it out. So it might start off with, he's such an asshole, I can't believe that I was looking after him and then he cheated on me 6 times with the neighbour. I can't believe that he was lying and cheating even when I was looking after him, and he made my life worse and messier, and I put so much energy into it. So that's the more surface layer. And then when you go a bit deeper, it's like, why did God do that? Why does God not bring nice things? What was the point of that? It was so meaningless. And just keep your attention there. And you'll feel when the thoughts are right, when they sit right in that place, and you'll feel when they're a lie. So just keep trying to encourage out honesty in yourself. So why in God? So why has God done this? And then seem to get more generic in a way, so less personal to him. So like, when has that feeling happened to you in the past? So just see if you can find that, like it happened to me. Like, that's how I feel with my mother, or that's how I feel when I was a child with my best friend. Do you feel like that towards the world often? And then if it's yes, okay, then go a bit deeper. So what's under that? I hate myself for not doing something. I hate myself for just letting it happen. Why didn't I protect myself? So a bit deeper than that. Why do these things keep happening to me again and again? Life wants to hurt me. Life wants to attack me. A bit deeper than that. I'm vulnerable. Life's going to hurt me. A bit deeper than that. Life's going to take away my survival. A bit deeper than that. Life is going to kill me. Deeper than that. My survival is threatened. Someone has threatened my survival. And that's how you begin to get to know your chakras and what's happening in your body. And beginning to be really honest, and you begin to see that your thoughts about him are actually fear of survival or fear of not being loved. I just gave that as an example. It could be that the bottom feeling was that you were going to not loved and you were abandoned, but I just went down that avenue. And you just see what's at the base of these thoughts. And they're normally a really simple sentence like, I'm going to be rejected, nobody loves me, or I'm afraid of my survival. It normally falls into those 2 categories. And each chakra has different flavors, you'll notice when you go through them. And on the ultimate level, so that's on the relative level, like just releasing thoughts from the body, because we repeat in the apparent timeline, we keep repeating these stories and then they get stuck in the body. Our body has a memory. So every time you see someone like your ex-boyfriend, or you see something that reminds you about it, then you begin to repeat that story. And the body contains that memory. So it's just going to the deep level of that thought, and then the next time you're thinking about him, you can take it straight back to survival. And then when you're ready, what is it that you want? You want someone that loves you, that completes you, that's complementary to you, that supports you, that loves you, that's concerned about your needs, that's empathetic. Like, you begin to say what it is you want, and you can feel that again in that chakra. And this is the way you begin to balance them out. And just see when it's going on in the day, just pay attention to the body. But on the ultimate level, there is no body doing that. Like, so I'm giving information about how to change the chakra system, just like I could be instructing someone how to cook. But on the ultimate level, that's not truth. There isn't somebody here giving you information of how to do something. There's energy dancing and playing together. And by the end of that exchange, there might be a change in your body-mind, or there might be a change in my body-mind, who knows? But we always personalize things, and we say, Lisa's giving me information. I'm sat here and I'm listening to Lisa's information. But actually who you are is this moment. And there's no prescription here, there's only description. And who you are is what's happening. It's free, it's empty, it's vast, it's spacious. But when the body is in suffering and though there are tensions there, then these are ways that can help relax the system. Yaki teki teki tek. You didn't say much, but I heard it. I heard you. Hey, Thane, that's nice. Hi, Praveen. Hi, Lisa. I find your silence as beautiful as your words. I have no problem just sitting with you in silence. I do have a question, though. Mood can be affected by drugs. If there are no side effects, can someone just take drugs or mood-enhancing foods to release chemicals that make one happy? Is awakening possible in that case if suffering is suffering necessary for awakening? Is awakening possible? Bum bum bum, ba bum, ba bum. Yes, drugs can alter the mood, can't they? That's why we prescribe them. But they always have side effects. But you're saying if they didn't have side effects. But they don't make you happy. Like, if you've taken antidepressants, they don't exactly make you happy. I once took Prozac when I was a teenager for about a couple of weeks. I gave up because it gave me spots, but I tried it, and did I like it? I don't remember liking it. Yeah, I don't remember that. But yeah, it all has side effects. So if you take too much acid or ecstasy, it releases too much serotonin and it makes you ill in other ways. It's not the answer. You won't be able to maintain your life if you become a drug addict. And is awakening possible in that case, or is suffering necessary for awakening? No, suffering's not necessary for awakening, but there has to be my experience is if you're happy enough, you'll just seek for pleasure. You just keep going for the pleasure hits if you're happy enough, which isn't a criticism to anyone that is, but if you're stable enough, then you'll go for the money, you'll go for the sex and rock and roll, and just keep hitting pleasure. Pleasure, pleasure, pleasure button. Boop, 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 boop. That's my experience with people. So suffering to a degree does make you interested in another possibility, but it doesn't have to be that way. Life works in mysterious ways. And there's also people that are very balanced and very happy that come to this subject as well. I wonder if you're asking the other part of the question about antidepressants or anything. So my opinion on antidepressants, I think anything for a long period isn't a wise idea. But I do know from working with people that if somebody's been really depressed or really stressed for a long period of time, then sometimes the body needs a kick start. It needs like boom, 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 to stop it overproducing like adrenaline, or underproducing serotonin or melatonin, whichever ones it is, which are all related. So sometimes antidepressants are needed to help the body start up again. But obviously, the fact that you got into that state, or it already implies that there's something out of sync with your life or the way that you're looking at things. So obviously there needs to be an exploration into something deeper to changing the experience. Hello Jordan, bonjour, merci de partager un moment avec nous ce soir. I think that says thank you for the moment partage. That's the word I don't know. I think it means partage. Let's have a look. For the moment of silence this evening. But I thought partage was leave. Pâté. Pâté. I would like some pâté, please. Let's have a look. Share. Partage. Let's hear that.
Partager.
Partager. Partager. Share. Could you tell me who I am one more time? Maybe sometimes we'll be able to accept it today. Thank you for sharing with us. Pleasure, Jordan. Who you are is this. You didn't walk into this room. You've never had a life. You've never owned anything. You don't have a bank balance or a job or a path. You're this, right here. Right here. This. And there's this seeking energy, this person that's desperate to arrive somewhere. It doesn't want to feel uncomfortable or separate or suffer, have mental anxiety or stress. So it keeps holding on to life and playing out the same patterns again and again in hope that one day it will arrive. But it's just never going to work out. It's hopeless. You're never going to make it. This is the freedom you seek, right here. But when you inhale, there's wise things that you can do. So working on the chakras is wise for the person. But on the ultimate level, your freedom is what's happening. It's expansive. It's not knowing, absolute not knowing. It's just here. Knowing comes with the mind, knowing comes with thinking, and thinking can arise, but then there's a knowing beyond that, there's a consciousness beyond that. There's conscious instantly that knows this without a second. It's right here. Aaron. Hello, Aaron. Hi, Lisa. I used to have a boyfriend called Aaron. I was just checking to see if it was him. It's not. Hi Lisa, thank you for the wonderful energy. Would you please give your thought on whether the ego dissolves itself or the true self dissolves the ego? Why do you think awakening happens? It's always the true self that does everything. The ego is always claiming everything the true self does. It's like, I moved my hand, I blinked, I looked, I spoke, I smelled. It doesn't know how it did that. It has no idea how it's looking out of its eyes or how it's speaking out of its mouth or hearing these sounds or sitting in this room or being on a globe spinning the sun. It has no idea. But yeah, it's like, all down to me. All down to me. I am the doer. You're not the doer. It's a happening. It's a happening. The problem with me saying that is, in one way it can be very relaxing, but in another way the person's like, what do I do? So on the human level, the human is about survival. So all the human wants to do is survive. But it's got confused with this identification because it's begun to think it's real and it exists, and then it begins to get survival muddled with itself. So its constant question is, what should I do? What should I do? What should I do? And it's always obsessed with this question. What should I do? What should I do? Where should I go? What should I do? And it believes that it's real, and it's always getting this seeking muddled up with itself. So our thinking mind was created so that we could improve survival. So I could say to you, I have 10 fish. Would you like to swap that for 10 pieces of wood? And so I could tell you where I've been, or we could communicate in order to make our survival better. Communication wasn't about joy or enjoyment. It was about surviving better. It was about evolution as humans. So our language is all about survival. But the person doesn't think that because it gets so muddled up about what it is. So the way that we think is based on production, on how we can produce to make our lives better. But at some point, we begin to believe we're the storyteller, and then our identity gets muddled in with survival, because if we're a good entity, then we can survive better. If we impress others, then we can survive better. If we have the biggest house, then we can convince everybody that we're worth something, and then we can survive better. So our identity gets completely merged with this whole survival mechanism, which isn't wrong as long as there is like a consciousness of what's happening. What happens when you identify with thinking, though, is there's a total merging with everything that you think. And so you have no ability to pull all these things apart, and you think you're real, and then you begin to tell yourself that you're not trying to survive, you're just trying to be a good person, but you're trying to be a good person in order to survive better in a group. But you begin to get all these stories and try and make this ego based on survival, like I am a good person, I am a handsome person. Even I am a spiritual person is normally about survival, like when you go to all the spiritual events and everyone's wearing their baggy trousers and rags and beards and dreadlocks. It's all about survival. How can you survive well? Am I still online? Yes. And then you project this into an identity that needs to be perfect. Because if you're perfect, then you can gain lots of trust from people. You can be popular, you can have lots of friends, and all of this is making you more secure, making you more able to trade with other humans and making your survival better. But this identity gets fixated on itself and its image. It gets sucked into like Instagram or Facebook, always publishing photos, thinking that that's it, that's who it is. And it gets so confused because he thinks that's who it is. And if you said to them, yeah, but you're just doing that because you want other people to love you, they'd be like, no, how dare you? I'm doing that because that's who I am. That's who I am. I'm trying to show people who I am. That's my passion. Yeah. Methinks that you fib. But it's got no consciousness of that. Even me telling you this, maybe there's resistance, maybe not from you, but from other people, because nobody likes to see this, that the functioning of the body is simply set up to survive. And everything it comes into contact with is all about its survival, whether it be popular, whether it be loved, whether it be rich, whether it be famous, whether it be having a big house with your partner and a swimming pool. All of these things are about survival. Even pleasure activities are about survival. So if you look at a pleasure activity, you'll notice that we're training ourselves or being obsessed with how to survive better. So say TV. What do you think TV and stories are doing? They're telling us stories which train us to respond in better ways. And let me tell you, as a writer myself, what techniques the writers use in order to keep you interested. So normally when you write a play or you write a book or you write a story, what you have to include is struggle of the character. So you set up a character, you can set up a perfect life, and then there comes an arc, we call it in writing, a struggle. And what interests us as the watcher is how that person deals with the struggle. We call this entertainment, watching TV or reading books or any of those sorts of things. But actually, when you really analyze it, all we're doing is we're training ourselves how to respond in different ways. So we're listening to other people's stories and we're paying attention to how they deal with that struggle. And that's what interests us, is how they overcome their struggles. That's the setup of all books. Even if I was to write a spiritual book, we would be interested in how they overcome it, which is about survival. Then when you get into non-duality, what you want me to say to you is how you do it. Because that's what the mind is used to. It's all about you and you surviving, but there's no consciousness of that. You don't sit there and go, I am an entity that's interested in survival, and how do I do that? What you tell yourself is that there is a problem, you can't get awakened. How do I become awakened? And you really believe that story to be a reality. Where it's not a reality. That's not the way it is. You don't become awakened because you don't exist. You're a story in your imagination. Everything about you is an imagination. The illusory you. Everything about you. Everything about the character, even the character that comes and goes, is an imagination now. What's actually happening is there is spaciousness experiencing itself. And that spaciousness is undefined. You can't find the source of yourself and you can't find the end of yourself. It just is. It's no thing and everything. And that's miraculous. That's heaven. But there's a person inside it that's so obsessed with itself, trying to get somewhere. So then you're like, so what do I do, Lisa? What do I do? I can tell you things to do on the human level of how to balance your emotional body, because your emotional body, by the time people get to non-duality, they haven't been through therapy or some spiritual practices. Normally, by the time they get here, they've told themselves so many lies about themselves, about their life, about what they believe, about what they think. They've denied so many emotions and repressed them that their body hurts. And the reason that your body hurts is because you've been lying to yourself. You've not been your authentic self. And what I mean by authentic self is nobody, is life simply acting and just acting out life's will, God's will, whatever you call it. So in every moment responding to life as it is. You've been acting out this imagination of yourself and what you think this imagination needs. So you've never been directly acting from the divine, which is free and expansive. You've been acting out from a contraction that is living in an imagination and is cut off from what it actually feels and thinks. So it's, in a way, it's always been lying to itself, telling itself porky pies. I'm unhappy because of Joe Blogs down the road. I'm unhappy because of my work. I'm unhappy because of my big foot. I'm unhappy because I don't look like this. I'm unhappy because of this. I'm unhappy because I was traumatized as a child. Blah, 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 blah. You're unhappy because there's an identification with something that's not true. That is the ultimate suffering of humanity. So what? So what? So here you are. Mind's like, what do I do? What do I do? There's something that's watching that's free already. There's something that's appearing that's free. It's not concerned about what you do or don't do. Yeah, but what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? It's not concerned. It's here. It's present. It's expanded. That's who you are. Thanks, Aaron, for your question. Hi, Lisa. What to do if your future seems to be determined by your environment? I have to go to the army because I live in Israel, but I strongly disagree with that, and I'm not sure that I will be able to express what I feel about that, and it even may not get accepted, and I may get to jail for that for a short period. Wonder what is your perspective on it? So this is a very human question. I'm not opposing that, but this is back to the relative world and the human world. Our cultures do have systems. Currently, our cultures do have systems which we most probably all of us can have a disagreement with. Yeah, I strongly disagree with armies. I strongly disagree with things that are damaging the environment. I strongly disagree with the torturing of animals through the current meat industry. And dairy industry. Dag, dag, dag. Can you see my jumper today? Be kind to every kind. Be kind to every kind. So we all live in these systems, but I buy into this system. So, when I was younger, I used to think that I could go off and live on a beach somewhere and not be part of society. And it's not really that possible. You maybe could go to America and live in the forest somewhere, but in Europe, there's not really much natural forest. Like, some hikers would come across you all the time. Whereas in America or in New Zealand or in these other countries or in Australia, you might be able to live out of nature. We're currently in this transition. And I assume that you can't get a passport for somewhere else, so you have to go to the army. And is jail going to help? If I were you, if I was in your situation, I would protest to a point. I would protest and I'd make it clear, but then I would just conform and do it. But as long as I could pick a job that was of benefit to me and to people in my environment, so obviously I wouldn't choose weapons. I don't know what it is that you have to do, but I would choose, a job that was most peaceful it could possibly be. You're not going to get out of your society. The problem is once you've gone to jail, it's most probably going to affect, if that's the country you've got to stay in, it's most probably going to affect your career, your education. And I'm not pro all that, but I would use it as a positive. Like, try to think of ways in which it can help make you expand. If that's the situation, then I wouldn't shoot yourself in the foot before you begin, because anything is possible, and maybe you could protest and that will be really beautiful and it'll work and something really beautiful will come out of that. But you could also protest by doing it and then just having a different energy as well. I say this because I presume you're young if you've got to go into the army in Israel, and if that's the culture you've got to be in for the rest of your life, then I wouldn't make your life really difficult. You can get out of the system for being mentally ill. Okay, so if you think that will work for you, and if that's true, but I wouldn't do it off a lie if it's not true. Because otherwise, if you lie, then if you're not mentally ill, then you're escaping it by a lie, which isn't, I'm anxious, yes, okay. So maybe you can get out of it. But yes, there's so many things that I disagree with in my society, and I as a young person, I thought I could escape it. And you can't really escape the society you're born into. You've got to make the best of it. I sound like my parents. So my parents used to say to me, and my rebelliousness like brought me to many exciting adventures. But there comes a point when you realize that you know, we're at this current place in evolution on the human world, and the best thing that you can do as a revolution to change the society is to love, and is to glow your heart from love. And that's actually the best thing you can do over political activism or acting out of hate. When I was younger, I worked in the West Bank. I went to Israel. I think I was banned from Israel for a while. I got caught in the West Bank. It was in like 2002 when there was quite a lot of like rebellion. I think there's a rebellion every few years in Israel, but there was quite a big rebellion then. I was a Buddhist at the time, and I practiced Buddhism, and I went with a Buddhist organization, and it was like, instead of being war, like meditate. Like, so instead of like having anger and hate towards each other, like meditate. And then also we were going to help kids cross the road in like really aggressive situations so they could go to school, because sometimes they couldn't go to school because there was so much military action, and etc. Doing different things, but you weren't allowed as a Westerner, I don't think, in Israel at that time, so we had to be smuggled in. We got smuggled in through Bethlehem, and we got caught, and it was so scary. But I did get in for a month, and we got caught again. But the first time they caught us, they let us go. They were happy, and they let us go. The second time, I think I got banned from Israel, but maybe on a new passport I would be able to go. I don't normally tell people that are Israeli this, actually, not because of lying, but because I know it's so politically charged. And my God, that really knocked political activism out of me. So I was like 22, And that month, I think it traumatized the hell out of me. And I stopped being political after that, a little bit. But I saw it was absolutely hopeless. Absolutely hopeless. The people that I was with that were campaigning for peace, to me, had just as much hate, maybe more, than the other side. Like, to campaign for peace and to go to that place, it has to be very motivated. And I found out they were motivated by hate. And that was really shocking for me. And most probably I had a motivation of hate as well. But I realised it, I saw it. And I saw it on both sides. I saw that just giving the Palestinian people power wasn't the answer. Giving the Israeli people power wasn't the answer. I just saw such hate on both sides. And yeah. And I left there, and I think I did think that was it. I think I did no more activism after that. Yeah. The most political thing that you could do in this world is love. It's like absolute rebellion, is work out what love is and love. There are ways people try to get out of Israel before army to live in other countries and never come back, but it's a risk. If you come back, you will instantly get arrested. Yeah. It used to be in most countries that you had to go into the army. Like, I don't agree with it, but what is it that you have to do? Like, can you get away with working on a commune or working in the office? Hey Lisa, this is from Thoughts. Thank you for your session. Can you talk about thoughts? From thoughts. I find it so strange and fascinating that there is a direct experience and that there are these thoughts, and the thoughts are somehow there and not. So strange. I know, they're like invisible. We've been told that they're in our head, so that's where we think they are. That's where we think they are, and that's where we feel like they're coming from, our head. But when people have done organ transplants, the new donor begins to remember and think of things from the person that died. So from the new heart, they begin to have memories of that other person. So actually it's not in the head, it's just in our mind. We tell us, so it makes us feel that they come from here. We don't know where they are. There's really a magical, invisible spell that happens. And they can be so powerful, like they can start you shaking just thinking about them. Just thinking about something, like shaking with anger or fury. They have such power. But the thoughts that you have tend to be in the pattern of you. So it's even though in the moment they come from nowhere, they're just appearing, they always tend to come from a pattern of you. So you'll have a pattern, like that body will have a pattern as to the way it thinks. It will think in your language, so most probably think in German, and it will think in your pattern. And we think that we can recondition the thoughts to have better thoughts, which is more than likely the case, but there's always going to be thoughts. True freedom is remembering that who you are is no thing and everything. It's never in fixing something. But when it's really bothersome, then you can do things like I suggest about going to the chakras and looking at the chakras and exploring what you think. Hi Ashki, Pati. Hi Johnny Bravo. Lisa, what happens after death? Does it really matter? Death is happening now. Death is. Like there's part of this experience that's not happening. Right here, it's empty. It matters to me. Just because you want to know what happens to you after you die, when you see who you truly are, then you'll know there's no birth and death. There just is the movement of energy. Hey, Geraldine. Hi, Geraldine. Bonjour, Geraldine. Or bonsoir. Good afternoon, Lisa. I'm French and I'll try to express my question correctly. So I watch a lot of videos about non-duality and I feel so interested to approach this huge deal. Certainly the most important one of my life. I know it's strange and still changes, but my question is, how can I totally be honest with me when something tells me too that I am addicted? And I know it's not the way. In a part, I enjoy these videos like opening my eyes. Open my eyes in front of a new and marvelous infinite landscape. And in another part, I am certainly boring and I act like an addicted person. Thanks, Lisa, to clear me. That's my pleasure, Geraldine. Maybe you could clarify, you mean you're addicted to non-duality, or there's a different addiction that you have? If you could just clarify, is it non-duality addiction, or you addiction, or addiction to alcohol, or? Just make sure it's still going on YouTube. To non-duality, to videos. Yeah, I think it's a very good addiction, and I wouldn't be concerned about that, because what's happening is that there's some part of you that's resonating, and when there's a readiness, there will be a letting go of it, but there's a resonating with a truth that's deeper than you. And it most probably gives the person highs or gives the person something, but that's fine. I'm sure that will be healthy. But underneath, you're most probably resonating with something so much bigger, which is beautiful. And of course, it creates an addiction in the person because the person is desperate to come home. How often do you watch? All day and all night. Like I smoked a lot years ago. Yeah. So your body's got an addictive side with the smoking. But the only time when I would begin to kick someone out from watching the videos on non-duality is if you are using it as an excuse to maintain depression in any way. So sometimes I've been working with someone and they might have severe depression, and in some way the videos excuse them to not do anything, to not act. But if there's this resonance with it, I don't see a problem with that. And if there is depression there, then there needs to be a dealing with that depressive energy. It won't shift just by listening to non-duality. But I don't think of it as negative in any way. 3 hours a day, that's okay. 3 hours isn't that much. And I think it's resonance. I think your heart feels there's a different way. Thank you so much, Lisa. This is Natalia, for this beautiful, powerful silence. I love it. Could you tell me, is there a significant difference between working with chakras and working with inner child and trauma? Thank you. I don't know what working with inner child and trauma means exactly. I think they're different therapies. Like obviously I know what they are, but I don't know what you mean when you say that, whether you're saying it generally or whether you're saying it as a specific therapy that you're currently using. So I think that working with the chakras is a form of working with the trauma. The only thing that working with the chakra the difference is if the trauma is too big, like if you get overwhelmed with the trauma, people that are specialized in trauma work can help you with an exercise to pass that through your body, whether it be the I forget what it's called, with the boop, 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 or tapping or something, or different techniques to help pass through it. Like you can get stuck with trauma. And working with the inner child, I'm not really sure what that means. Yeah, certainly. Working the chakras, allowing you to feel the things from the past, yeah. But it's like sometimes when I work with people in one-to-one sessions, I don't do it. I mean, you see me work with people on Skype, but I'm a lot more impersonal on Skype or on a live stream, because it's not really the space to really go deep with someone. But when I work one-to-one with somebody in person, like sometimes I just talk about their life and just talk about where they've come from or what's happening for them. And we talk about past, and we talk about things. But then normally there comes a point where I ask them to go into the chakra and to feel these things that we've talked about. So there's an issue that might be recurring, and then to go down to the deep basic feeling. So so every problem in your life always has a deep basic feeling. Like most of us have most probably like 5 core stories which we go around again and again and again, but they always seem different because we tell them in different ways. So it's like so like with me, one of my core stories, which I still have and I still have to work with, I don't know if this will ever go, and I talk about it openly on the internet, is my dyslexia. I mean, I had 13 years of being in an education system where I was constantly being punished for being stupid, and yet when they tested me, I had quite high intelligence, not like really high, but higher than average by quite a bit. But I was in a system that couldn't cater to my needs at all. So I was put down a year, and not only was I put down a year, so I was with a year younger kids, I was also at the bottom of that class, and a lot of the time I was just left out of the class, like sat in a corner alone, sent outside, told off, humiliated by like everyone had to stand up and read, and I couldn't read. Like when I left school, I had reading age of an 8-year-old. So it was really a traumatic time at school, even though I had the blessing of I got on with people. Like I got on with friends. I did get bullied at one point, but that was for another reason. But most of the time I got on with people. But that's really traumatic because it's like it's like I had things to offer, but it was like no one could hear. I just couldn't do it in the way in which they instructed. Like I couldn't do it in the mainstream way. And that's something that I still have to deal with in everyday life now. Not trusting my ability to do certain things. And then this comes about in all relationships that I have, this after effect, and it's a core story that this character has, and goes into like feeling like it's not that it's done something wrong, but feeling like it will get caught or it'll be told off for doing something. Like I can't explain it, but when you're in relationship, it manifests. When we're totally unconscious of ourselves, we just act out these core stories again and again and again and believe they're true each time. So maybe we project onto the partner. It's not something I actually do, but we project onto the partner. So say if you have my trauma about the education system, so you project it onto the partner, the partner's the teacher and going to take away your freedom. And then suddenly you're caged by your partner. Or you project it onto society, or you project it onto your neighbors, or you project it onto your work environment. And each time you tell yourself a new story and you think it's real and you don't connect all those stories. So what I do when I work with people is I get them to go into the chakra and recognize these core stories that you have, and just recognize that tendency towards it. And then the quicker that you recognize it, the quicker that you can correct it when it begins to happen. Or you don't even need to correct it. You just see that it's happening and you know that you're in illusion, but that's what's happening. You know that that's not true, that those thoughts aren't the truth of the situation, that there's a past trauma coming up or a past core story coming up, but that's the way it is. I would love to experience this with you. What are the conditions? I understand this very well. What are the conditions? I'm not sure what you mean, what the conditions are. And sometimes when I work with people, I can't always get to it because they're not willing to or wanting to get to it, or they're not ready to see it. Like sometimes people, I think when I do one-to-one sessions, so there's lots of people where it really resonates and really works, but sometimes I think that so few of the people just they just want to be nobody and they don't want to see these dynamics, but sometimes they have to be seen, but sometimes they don't. It's also fine to have issues. We all have issues. And then eventually once I've done that and identified it, I point it back to that there is nobody, that's not you. To make the individual session with you. You can find it on my website. It has sessions. At the top. Paul. Hi, Paul. Hello, Lisa. How can non-duality assist with physical suffering, i.e. physical pain? Having had stage 4 cancer diagnosis, I am able to prepare for dying, but there is always the fear of real physical suffering. Thanks, Paul, for your question. I was just looking to see if we'd spoken before. I don't know if you stage 4 cancer diagnosis, if that has it metabolized, sorry, or is it at the stage where they just offer you palliative care, or do they offer you? I just ask because I wonder if this is like a they've said that this is what's happening now. So last year, when my dad died of cancer last year. I think it was last year. Yes, it was last year. I think that they have solutions. They always, as long as you work well with the palliative care team, they always have solutions for really intense pain. I think the hardest thing for watching my dad, and I think my dad had quite a painful one, is the emotional side to it. So it is like fear of the pain. It is fear of dying. It is fear of loneliness. That was my experience of my dad. And there's a book that I read, let me just find it, before my dad passed, to help prepare for it. Not to help prepare me for him passing, but help to prepare for him, prepare for how he was going to die. Like, I wasn't sure how that was going to happen. My gran had died when I was growing up. I used to live with her. And my friend died of cancer, but I was unsure, and I was unsure how to advise him. It was a really nice book called With the End in Mind. It was called With the End in Mind, by I lost it again. Maybe it's at the top of my list now. Yeah, by Catherine Mannix. And I found that really helpful because I was unsure what that was going to look like with my dad, and it just gave me more of a perspective on it, of what was coming. It's something that all of us have to do, and from my experience of my dad and my friend, the hardest part was not the physical part. The hardest part was the mental part for them. Like the physical part, they had lots of drugs to take away the pain. I can understand that's an imagination that comes up, is how to deal with the physical pain. And you can find out your options. Like, I don't know if it's for sure, but there's also options if you live in Europe, of Switzerland and Holland, who can assist dying as well. So I think that my dad could have had a lot easier death if he accepted it and prepared for it. but he resisted it and denied it, so he didn't take all the palliative care that was on offer. I think the work is emotional, so I think that being here and speaking about non-duality and the emotions is the correct place to be. Like working out who you are, that who you are never dies. In that moment of death, in the moment of pain, there's something there without pain that's free from it all, that will never die. And the idea of losing people and people losing you is also an idea. You can't be lost and they can't be lost. When you really see what everything's made of, you see that there is no death and birth. But emotionally it is also painful, because on the human level there is apparent loss and the giving up and letting go, and that can be emotionally painful. So I hope some of the work that I offer on the internet with working with the chakras can be helpful to you. And I wish you all the best. Like I hope it's, and I wish you an easy journey. And it's just knowing deeply that it's not like one thing that I felt with my dad that I couldn't say to him, but I wanted to say to him many times, is that you're not being kicked out of anywhere. I used to feel like my dad was being abandoned or kicked out, like everyone else was getting to live and him not. He was very healthy when it happened and very well. And you're not being kicked out of anything. Oh, my mum is calling. That's funny. So thank you so much, Paul, and you're welcome to write other questions, and I'm happy to try to assist you. Okay, thank you. Hi Lisa, do you know why you feel one side of the body left feels like it is my consciousness and the other side is numb? No? I do not know that. Hi Lisa, young kids nowadays are labelled as at a young age, for example with ADHD. This eventually conditions their self-identity. Wouldn't it be nice when non-duality becomes an educational topic? Oui. Okay, my friends, it is time for me to go. I will call the mother, the mother, and I just wish you well, and I wish you everything, and I shall see you again on Sunday at 6 p.m. French time. You're very welcome to join me. Bye, guys.